All right, I guess it's just going to be us. Shall we begin? Yeah, everyone's ready? Okay. Tenakoto, Tenakoto, Tenakoto katoa. Welcome to the SOLA seminars. Today we have a PhD seminar, proposal seminar for a SOLA PhD student. Welcome Ziyu Wang. Today's going to talk to us about exploring the relationship between high density communities and blue-green infrastructure. The assessor is Jackie Bowering. Welcome to our seminar. So I'm going to leave the floor to you, Ziyu. You have 30 minutes, and then we will start with Jackie. And if Jill and I have any questions, we will at the very end. But we will start with Jackie, and then if there are any public questions from the public, and then Jill and I will add or ask you anything at the very, very end. All good. So for our audience, I see we have a couple of people. If you have any questions, please feel free to either type them in the chat box or open your mic and camera at the end of the discussion when we open it to the public. And feel free to ask Ziyu any questions you may have. Ziyu, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks for coming. I'm Ziyu Wang, a PhD student from SOLA. Before I start, I want to take this opportunity to thank my supervisors, Jill and Nada, for their encouragement, support, as well as supervision, and also thanks my assessor, Jackie, for coming. Today, I'm gonna talk about the relationship of people using blue and green spaces when they are living in high-density communities. As we can see from this photo, there are lots of different types of high-density communities located very closely along the river in Qingdao. And I will start with the city scale in China. Based on the population, there are 5 scales in China. The first one is super large size cities with population more than 10 million. And the second one is very large size cities with population between 5 to 10 million. And then is large size city with the population between 1 to 5 million. For population between 500,000 and 1 million, we call it medium-sized city, and population under 500,000, we call it small-sized city. Except for Beijing and Shanghai, there is also another 16 cities with the population more than 10 million in 2020, and the orange dots show their locations in China and mainly focus on the east and the central part in China. And the top photo shows the high-density community located in super large size city Chongqing. Actually, Chongqing got the largest population with more than 32 million in 2020. And the second picture shows the city of medium-sized city, Qingzhou. Although the population is under 1 million, but we can see from the photo that there are still lots of high-rise buildings are under construction. And the third picture is taken in small-sized city, Chongzhong, with a population 180,000, and we can see from the photo that there is a very huge green space are isolated, which means this area will be replaced by the high-rise buildings in the near future. So basically, different scale cities in China are experiencing the rapid urbanization. And my presentation will be divided into 4 parts. Firstly, I will talk about the research problem about blue and green space in China, and then list some lecture review. And the third is about showing some work I have done currently, and end with the method. In terms of the green space in China, we can see from the left photo, there are several residents sit on the stone in their gateway and talking to each other. Actually, this is a very common socialized way for the residents live in this kind of community. We call it old residential community in Chinese cities because the lack of private garden, and also there is no public area for them to recreation and leisure. And the second picture shows a mother with her kid is working across the green space in gated community in Qingdao, and there is a very small children play area not far away. Limited green space in the Chinese community, so residents had to find more public more large public green space area to socialize. So as consequence, as the red photo shows, there are a lot of people are dancing in the green park in Shanghai. In order to let more residents can use the urban public green space, Chinese government aimed to build an ecological green city with the requirements of sea green at 300 meters and sea garden at 500 meters. And then it's about the urban blues in Chinese city. 19% urban river was polluted in China. For example, the first picture shows a man is fishing in the polluted river in Shenqiu, and people in China like to be on and in the water, especially during the summertime. Like the second picture shows, a boy is swimming in the algae-filled coastline in Qingdao. Recent years, algae-filled coastline has become more serious problem due to the ocean pollution. And the third picture shows the Hotan Park in Shanghai. There are lots of urban river renewal projects in China recent years. Although the water quality and the environment is better than before, but there's still lack of public area for people to recreation. And United Nations gave us Sustainable Development Goals 11, mentioned that build a public green space is one of the measures to make our city sustainable. However, COVID-19 as catalyst totally changed people's life. Lockdown and travel restrictions make people rely much more on their community green space than previously. For example, in China, people required certification to enter or leave their communities during 2 weeks lockdown when there is COVID-19 case or close contacts in the communities. The photo in the right illustrates the community lockdown situation in Beijing, and people had to buy their daily necessaries through the online shopping. And here is a delivery man just gave a box of water to the residents. And then I want to talk about different density communities in China. We use the floor area region to classify different types of communities. Currently in China, we got 3 types. One is high-rise residential buildings, with the floor is 10 floors and above. And the second is middle-rise residential buildings, with the always under 6 floors building. And the third one is detached house with 2 to 3 floors. Actually, in China, the first and second type are much common for public in most Chinese cities. And then is my research aim and objectives. For the research aim is to understand people's preference and reasons for different activities in green spaces only or blue-green spaces along the urban river, especially for those living in high-density communities. And for the research objectives, first one is describing quality and proximity spaces along the river. The second one is identifying the relationship, residences, use, and spaces. The third one is determining the reasons why residents choose to use various spaces. And then is the second part, lecture review. I will firstly list some key research information about high-density communities, blue-green spaces, and people's activities. Then talk about the gaps I found and the research questions. So firstly is high-rise residential communities. People live in this kind of community. There is no need for them to maintain houses and gardens. And another advantage is that the cost of purchasing high-rise residential housing is also lower. However, there are also some other disadvantage of living here. The first one is restricted social activities. A study in Australia shows that compared with the detached house dwellers, people living in high-rise buildings shows more negative view of their community and poor mental health. And we can also see from this photo, it is a high-rise residential community in Qingdao. There is a very long gateway from the building, and a woman is working through the green space located on the both side, but there is still lack of recreational area for them. So the third disadvantage is restricted access to the green space. And the second type is middle-rise residential community. The advantage of living here is people have better social connect than residents in high-rise residential buildings, because this kind of community is accessible for anyone, and high-rise residential buildings only accessible for the residents. Actually, in China, currently there are three groups of people living here. One is low-income status. They live here for the cheaper housing price. The second one is work unit community, which means people work in the same factory or company, and they also live in the same community. So their neighborhoods is also their colleagues. And the third situation is that this area used to be the village, and due to the urban development, low-rise country yard was replaced by the middle-rise residential community. So people know each other before they move in this kind of community. So based on these situations, residents in this kind of community needs more area to socialize. However, actually, the disadvantage of living here is there is more limited green space than high-rise residential communities. As the photo shows, there are several pots of plants in front of this family due to lack of the private garden. So these plants are their green space for them. And another disadvantage is that, as I mentioned before, people live here mainly in the low economic status, so they may have more psychological stress and poor mental health compared with the high-rise residential community in the affluent areas. And they also have less opportunity to access the sports field, gardens, parks. And the third type is detached house community. Obviously, living here has better living environment. People have private gardens, they can access more blue and green spaces, and they also have better social interaction. And the disadvantage of living here is that people need to maintain houses and gardens, and the cost of living here is much more expensive. And then I will talk about physical activities. Blue and green spaces provide people an accessible, attractive, recreational area for people to exercise. And physical activities is associated with both people's physical health and mental health. For example, like the top left photo shows, there are several people are fishing and sitting by distance along the river. Actually, recreational fishing can decrease stress and have a profound impact on long-term health outcome. And the top medium photo shows a person is sit on the chair and enjoying the peaceful scenery of blue and green space. Sitting in the natural environment is more conducive to the recovery of attention. And the top right photo shows a man is walking his dog along the urban river. Dog walking can improve owners' mental health by offering a pleasant and stress relieving experience. And the bottom left photo shows two people are walking by the river and enjoying the landscape. And the bottom middle photo shows several people are cycling in the green space. And the top bottom right photo shows a group of people are running in the green space. Green exercise like this can reduce anger, tension, depression, confusion, and also make people feel more energetic and attractive. And then is social activities. Green and blue spaces provide a platform for people to socialize, and positive social interaction can improve the social cohesion, which is in relation to reducing obesity, preventing stroke, and cognitive decline. For example, the top left photo shows a group of people are dancing in the Green Park in Beijing. Actually, group dancing is a very popular social activity in China, especially for the elderly people. People can obtain lots of mental benefits through this kind of activity, such as social support, a sense of community, and increased physical activity levels. And the top middle photo shows two men are doing Tai Chi by the river in Chongqing. And they also got two audience behind them on the steps. Tai Chi can effectively improve the symptoms of Parkinson's disease, sleep disorders, and also can reduce stress, depression, and low mood. And the top right photo shows three men are playing the violin in the river park in Shanghai. Playing musical instruments and singing have a positive effect on reducing depression and promoting mental health. And for the image at the bottom left, there are two persons sitting on the chair and have a conversation. The photo at the bottom middle shows a family are having a picnic on the meadow near the river in Qingdao, and the bottom right photo shows that there are three residents taking the shuttlecock for exercise. Group-based activities like this can create a better social relationship, which brings a variety of positive health outcomes. What's more, accessibility and proximity to blue and green space is also very important for people. Most studies recommend an average distance of 5 to 10 minutes walk from residents' home to green space, but they are not specific on how many kilometers this represents. And then is outdoor activities choices. Based on the study in Hong Kong, Guangzhou, and Amsterdam, the several are the main reason for people why choose outdoor activities. They are escape from the city, being in the nature, relax, exercise, get in touch with fresh air, enjoy the scenery. What's more, plant-rich and well-maintained public urban green space is also welcomed by residents. Based on the lecture review in this section, I found the following research gaps. The first one is field study focus on different types of high-density communities, especially in relation to outdoor green space. The second one is little research concentrate on the uses of blue and green spaces in high-density communities. The third one, it is unclear what relationship exists between people's preference for using different spaces along an urban river. The last one is the reason why people choose different environments to socialize or undertake physical activities needs further investigation. And then is my research questions. The first one is what are the current spatial relationship of green spaces and blue spaces along the urban river? The second one is what residents' regular activities take place in these places? The third one is why do residents use spaces in specific ways? And then it's the third part. In this part, I will talk about the study area a little bit and then list some work I have already done right now. Firstly, for the site selection, Qingdao is selected for this study based due to the two main reasons. One is that high-density city. The population of Qingdao is more than 10 million in 2020, and it will be increased in the future. Another reason is that large areas of blue and green resources. Qingdao is also one of the China's national landscape garden cities, with 2024 rivers, many bays, and widening coastlines. And I specifically choose Licun River as my study area. One reason is that it is the largest water system in urban area of Qingdao. Another reason is that it flows through small high-density communities than any other river in the city. Actually, there are many residents along the Lichun River since 1872 because there is a Lichun market placed in the middle section in Lichun River. We can see from the left photo that the Lichun River was badly affected by flooding year-round, and the flood water was highly polluted. And the photo in the middle shows the Lichun River situation before the renewal project, and the picture in the right shows the currently landscape along the river. Because the environment becomes better, so more residential communities have appeared on the both sides of the river in recent years. Just like the photo I show at the very beginning of my presentation, there are many different types of residential communities along the river, not only the old residential community, but also some very new high-rise buildings. And the next is what I have do currently. Firstly, I want to know what exactly landscape character along this river. Based on the government's river division, the river was be divided into 3 reaches: upper reaches, middle reaches, and lower reaches. And we can see from the photo that in the upper reaches there are attractive waterfall garden and huge lake with some steps and bench, and it also got wetland streams. While in the middle reaches is just some plants and pathways along the river. However, in the lower reaches, the landscape is more naturalistic, and there is an overpass above the river. So basically, the riverside landscape in upper and middle reaches of the Lichun River is highly constructed, while in the lower reaches and the mouth of the river is less modified. And then I want to figure out the land use along the river. So based on the GIS analysis, we can see that the residential area mainly focus on the upper and middle reaches, while in the lower reaches, there are mostly abandoned area and industrial factories. And there are also some abandoned area in the upper reaches and some shopping centers mainly focus on the middle reaches. So based on this, my study area can narrowed in the upper and middle reaches. And then I choose the 9 sections for detailed study, and the section in the right just show how the landscape transformed from the building to the river, and we can see that the landscape along the riverside from abundant to the simple, from upper reaches to the middle reaches, and the residential building density is also become more crowded from upper to the middle reaches. And currently, there are 3 types of communities along the river. First one is gated community, which is high-rise buildings. The second one is open community, and the third one is open mixed-use community. The second one and the third one is mid-rise buildings. And this table can tell more detailed information about each type communities. So for the gated community is high-rise buildings in the well-designed landscape garden, and for the open community is middle-rise buildings in the parallel pattern with simple landscape, and for the open mixed-use community is middle-rise buildings in the parallel pattern with a storage room between the 2 buildings, and with very simple landscape. Actually, for the mixed-use community, the first floor is mainly for restaurant, cafe, and market, and the residential use is just since the second floor to the top floor. Currently, I just figure out the community type along the river. So for the communities 400 meters and 800 meters away from the river need to be identified further. Actually, there are also low density buildings like detached houses along the river is about 800 meters away. So this community type table will be much more diversified in the future. And the next step, what I have done is that I want to know what exactly people are doing along the river. So this table illustrates the people's activities during the China's National Day holiday. And the red fold highlights the activities specifically occurring during the holiday compared to the workdays. What is interesting is that we can find there are more social activities appear during the holiday. And in terms of the river users, more family and more young people appear during the holidays. However, what is different from my exhibition, there are several sections actually gathering few people, like section 4 and section 8. So I modify my section a little bit and finally choose this 7th section for the detailed study in the future. And the last part is method. I will talk about the overview of research and the data collection method. And for the overview research design, the research will be divided into 3 stages. First, field observation, working interview, and sit-down interview. So firstly, for the stage 1, 30 communities will be observed, especially focused on the residential green space based on the distance from the river. Along the river, 400 meters away from the river, 800 meters away from the river, and 10 communities will be observed for each distance zone. And then I will draw plans and sections of different communities to understand types of the communities. And then for the next, for the working interview, it's mainly focused on the river users, specifically for different river users group, elderly people, family, and young people. The data analyzed for this stage is to collect river users' route map and talk data to understand people's activity relationship patterns. And the last stage is sit-down interview. I will both interview the river users and green space users. For the river users, a sit-down interview will be arranged after the working interview. And there are also 3 methods for recruiting the green space users interviewees. Firstly is use snowball sampling. Try to ask river users is there any their neighbors or friends are willing to take part in the sit-down interview. And the second method is just to find the green space users in the community. And the third one is ask a street manager to help contact the residents. Street manager in China, they can contact different residents in the different communities. And then record interview content to understand most important reasons why people do different activities in different areas. And for the data collection method, this for the field observations, green space distribution in community, the degree of community openness, and the relationship between buildings and the green spaces. Buildings' height during the observation will be described for each area, and this for the set of observations will be recorded with photos, drawing, field notes, and mapping. And then for working interview, this progress will be carried out after university ethic approval is given to carry out data collection for this study by human ethic community. And focusing on where the largest number of people gathering, I will arrange the working interview during the 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on 2 days per week on selected work days and weekends during nearly 3 months summer to spring period from April to June this year. And firstly, natural occurring conversation will happen, and after the interviewee's permission, the working interview will be conducted from the riverside to their community. And interviewees will be asked to draw a route of map after working interview. And the last is about sit-down interview. The sit-down interview will be arranged in the public green space in different communities, such as pavilions and seats like this, and open-ended question will be used for this method. And both work interview and sit-down interview will be recorded with audio recording devices with the permission of interviewees. And then I want to talk about research contribution to new knowledge. My research this research can contribute new knowledge to the public perception for blue and green species field, and I specifically interest on people's preference in different green or blue-green species. And the funding of this research can help landscape architects and city planners design and plan better urban spaces along the urban river in China. And next is my timeline. I have already finished set survey and finished my research proposal and also submitted it. And today I just present my proposal, and hopefully my ethic application can be approved by March. And for data collection, I will start my field observation next month. And for working interview and sit-down interview, these two data collection methods will be, I will do this after my ethic application was approved. And hopefully I can finish my data collection in August this year and finish my PhD study in 2024. So this is all from me. Thanks for listening patiently.